Hello, this is Keith Aul, and welcome back. In today's tutorial, we're going to learn do a short data analysis project from a data set that I created using ChatGPT, and it's basically a sales data set, as you can see on the screen. It's got product IDs, regions, sales reps, the categories, total revenue, and stuff like that. What we're going to be doing is we're going to do an analysis based upon a column that we have to create ourselves. Now, sometimes when you have a data set, you have a set number of columns, but you want to create another graph or something like that based upon a column that you have to create yourself. So in other words, let's look at this data set here. Maybe we want to know what the total revenue is prior to getting a discount. Maybe we want to track that and we want to see if there's any trends there. In today's case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to add another column called sales category, basically based upon the number of units sold. So if it's set at a certain threshold, we want to put it in a high sales category or a medium or a low sales category. And we're going to create that column, which is called a helper column, and then we're going to use that to create a pivot table and a graph from that. And after we do that, we're going to do the same thing within Python to show you the differences between the two. Because as a data analyst, you have a number of tools in your tool belt, and you need to learn how to use a lot of different applications. So that's why I do these tutorials. So anyways, let's go ahead, let's create this helper column. I'm going to go over to another sheet here. And what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to put in a bucket basically high, low, and medium. And we're going to do that. We're going to use the IFS function in Excel. Okay, tab into that, and we're going to determine whether or not the units sold here falls within a certain range. And I just arbitrarily set these thresholds. So I'm going to say if it's less than or equal to 33, comma, we're going to put it in a low category. If, okay, it's going to be less than or equal to 64, we're going to put it in the medium category. And if it falls outside of those two numbers, meaning if it's greater than 64, we're going to put it in the high category. So we're going to say E2 greater than 64. It's going to be high. Close out the IFS function, press enter, and it creates that. So let's carry this down by using an autofill. Double click on this plus sign, and it carries this formula all the way down. It detects the end of your data set. So I have roughly, I think 1,000 rows in here. Yes, I do. Okay. So now we got that category or that new column set. Now we're ready to create a pivot table off of this data set, and we're going to be able to create that pivot table by selecting sales category. So let's select anywhere in your data set. Let's go up to insert and then pivot table, and then it automatically selects your entire data set, and we're going to put it on the existing worksheet. I'm just going to select over here and click OK. So now we got that. So now let's create the pivot table. So what we want to do is we want to see the trend basically between the units sold and the sales category. So we're going to put units sold in the values area, and by default, Excel sums it. The aggregation is a sum. And then we're going to use the sales category column that we just created. We're going to put that in the rows. So now we got a bucket here. Basically, we got the number of units sold that fall within high, meaning that any transaction over here that has the units sold above 64, it's going to track it as a high category. Okay, so now let's come over here. Let's sort this by total units sold in descending order. So let's go up here to this arrow here, and we're going to select more sort options, and we want to sort it in descending order by units sold. Click OK. So now it's in descending order. Now from this pivot table, let's insert a chart. Okay, so let's close out of here, and let's go up here, go back to the insert menu, and we're gonna go into the charts area, select this, and we're gonna do a clustered column chart. Okay, based upon that. Okay, so now let's just clean this up basically. So let's go up to the design or the format, and we're gonna let's go back over here. We're going to go up to the pivot table or pivot chart analyze menu because we selected the chart, and we're just going to remove these field buttons that you see here. So we're just going to go up here and select hide all, and then let's just get rid of the title. Okay. And now let's add, let's also get rid of the legend. Select it, press the delete key, and let's put some access titles over here. So let's go ahead and select the chart, and you got this plus sign over here, and we're going to add access titles, and then we're just going to be double click on that, Control A, sum of units sold. Okay, now let's go over to the horizontal. Double click, Control A to select everything, and let's just put sales category. Okay, so we got this simple little chart. It's nothing pretty at this point, but it's simple. It's gonna show a little trend here, and it shows the number of units sold that were considered high, and so on and so forth for the rest of them. Now let's do this same type of short analysis, but let's go into Python, and we're going to also create a pivot table and basically the same chart within Python. So I'm going to tab over to Python. Okay, and now let's do the code for this. And let's start by importing the necessary libraries that we need. So, which is, we're going to insert pandas as PD, and then we're going to import matplotlib dot pyplot as PLT. Control Enter. Okay, it executed it fine. Let's take a step back a little bit. In Python, I'm using Jupyter Notebooks IDE to run our code here. And this, we're going to import, obviously, the library, pandas library. We're also going to go into the matplotlib library. It's a much larger library, but we're using this dot notation because we want to use a certain submodule of this entire library. So that's why I did that. So just think of it as a great big toolbox that you have, and you want to access a certain tool within that toolbox. Well, instead of carrying around the entire toolbox, you just want that one tool. So that's basically the premise around that. So let's go on to the next cell. Okay, I'm going to press B as in boy to create a new cell. And now what we want to do is we want to create a file or a variable name that holds the data set name that we're going to create a data frame for. So I'm going to just arbitrary call this file path equal to, and my data set name is sales underscore data underscore ANAXLSX. Okay, control enter. B to move on to the next cell. And now we want to load this data set into a data frame. So we're going to arbitrarily pick a variable name called df is going to equal to pd for pandas dot read underscore xl, and we're going to pass in the file path variable. Press enter. Let's just read or display the first 5 rows of this data frame now after it reads it in. And that's what dot head does. If you don't pass it any parameters, it's just going to display the first 5 records of your data set. So press control enter. Give it a second. Okay, so now we read in our data set. Okay, as you can see that within this spreadsheet, by default, because I didn't put parameters here on what sheet to read in, it read in the first sheet within that Excel spreadsheet. So now we got that. Let's go on to the next cell. After we load in the data set, now as before, what we want to do is we want to create a helper column, an additional column for this data frame. This is just one way that you could do it. I'm not saying this is the most efficient. I'm just giving you an idea how you could use lists within Python, and then from that list we create an additional column for your data frame. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this sales underscore category, and we're going to initially set up the list as an empty list. So that's why I'm using square brackets. This just signifies to Python you're creating a list. Okay, and now we're going to do like a for type loop using if statements. So for, again, this is I'm just calling these variable names. It's not anything that's written in Python. I'm just calling it anything that I want in data frame. We're going to access the unit sold column within this data frame. Okay. Then let's close that out. Colon. This is just a syntax. So what this is going to do is going to create a for loop, and it's going to go through each row in your data frame. And within each row, it's going to perform this following if logic. So if number of units, okay, is less than or equal to 33, then we're going to follow this. Now we're going to access the list that we created, which is called sales underscore category. Okay, dot append. Okay, and then we're going to assign the variable the value of low. Okay. Oh, let's close this out. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this down so I don't have to keep on typing everything out. So let's do this. Let's go back to this elif, which is else if, and then we're going to do this again. So instead of 33, now we want less than or equal to 64. And we're going to assign the value of medium. Okay. And then since there's no more condition, basically, so if it doesn't fall within the unit number of units sold up here, doesn't fall within these two conditions here, we're just going to have a default value set. So we're going to use the else colon, press enter, and then sales underscore category is going to be equal to high. Okay, press enter. And then that should be it. Now we want to display this list so you could see what it's happening. So I'm going to just go sales underscore category. And I want to only, let's, category. Okay, we're only going to access from the beginning of the list to 10 rows. So that's what this is doing here. Okay, let's press Control Enter. If I don't have any syntax errors, it should run okay, which it did. So let's go up here. So it displayed, took this list, and now we want to just access the first 10 items within this list. So if we go up here, so as you can see, it went to this first row. The number of units sold was 86. So it falls within this else area and it's assigned the value of high. The next one is 64. So it's less than, it's actually, it's not less than or equal to 33. So it falls through here. Is it less than or equal to 64? Yes. So it's going to assign a value of medium. So it does that for every single row in your data frame. So now we got this list, okay, and we displayed the list. Now we want to create the new column, okay, in our data frame based upon the values in this list. So let's press B, enter, and let's create the new column. So we're going to do data frame. We're going to create the new column called sales category. Okay, and it's going to be equal to the sales category list. Okay, let's press enter. Now let's display the data frame. first 5 rows. And let's go back over here. I forgot that. Okay. So basically what this is doing, it's taking this list, and this list consists of the exact number of items, okay, for each row in your data frame. So it's going to assign high to the first row, assign medium to the next row, and so forth. So let's go ahead and press Control Enter. Scroll down here. So as you can see, that's exactly what it did. So it matches everything up with this new column that we created in our data frame. If we scroll back up here, the original data frame does not have that column over here to the right. So, okay. So now what we want to do is we want to create the pivot table, okay, off of this new data frame. Okay, in order to do that, let's create a variable called pivot is equal to, press enter. Okay, now we're gonna access the data frame dot access the pivot table function, and then press enter. Okay, now index the parameter to the pivot table, the index, okay, parameter is going to be assigned to the sales category. So think of it as this. Let's go back to the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, in this pivot table, let's go up here. Okay, the sales category is a column, and we're going to place that into the rows area. And that rows looks like this. So let's go back over to here. Okay, so index actually refers to the rows like it does in Excel. So that's what the index means. Okay, now let's go on to the next parameter. Values is going to equal to unit sold column. Okay, that's the column that we're going to sum up. Okay, now within the pivot table function here, we have to tell it what do we want to do with the values column. Do we want to get the average? Do we want to get the sum or count? So this is what the ag parameter does. Ag function, to be specific. And we're going to tell it that we want to sum it up. Sum up the units sold. Comma. Press enter. And then just in case there are any null values within your pivot table, we want to tell, instead of filling the pivot table with a NaN value, meaning not a number, we're going to tell it just to give it zeros. So the fill value parameter will do that for us. Okay, equal to 0. Okay, so now let's press enter. Let's do a backspace, do that, press enter again. Now we're going to access what we want to do in the pivot table like we did in Excel. We want to sort this pivot table first before we build the graph. So we do that with dot sort underscore values. And then we're going to pass that. We got to tell it, well, what column do we want to sort it by? So we use the by parameter equal to units sold, comma, and then we have to tell it do we want ascending or descending? So the parameter here by default, it's going to be in ascending order, but in this case we want do it in descending order. So I give it the value of false. Let's close that out. Press enter. Let's close out the top one. Press enter. And now let's display the pivot table. So we want to use the variable pivot. Control enter. Okay, positional argument, fill value, okay. Okay, what I did here was I forgot the equal sign. Control enter. Give it a second. Let's see, what else did I forget here? Pivot, I misspelled pivot. Give me a second. Okay, now we got the pivot table. So let's go back to Excel. Let's pay attention to this pivot table here. Let's go back to Excel. As you can see, the pivot table is exactly the same. We got the sales category and the units sold within our pivot table here, and the numbers are correct. Let's go back to Python, and they equal exactly. So after we got the pivot table, now let's go ahead and build out the graph or the bar chart. Let's go over here. Now let's plot the graph. Let's scroll down here. And now let's do this. Okay, we access the pivot table, pivot dot plot. Press enter. We're going to use parameters to the plot method, and we're going to kind is basically what kind of chart do we want? Well, in this case, we want a bar chart. Bar chart in Python corresponds to a clustered column chart in Excel. So that's what that is doing. So kind equal bar, comma, and then we want the figure size. So you'll see this in a second after it displays the chart itself. I'm going to pass it in. Let's see. The height, width, and height. So basically 10, comma 6. These are numbers that you could pass into it. They're not set in stone. You could set any numbers, and it's going to display your chart to the size that you want. And it's something you have to play around with. And now we want to pass in the color map parameter. And this is, let's see, path equal. Okay. And this is something that's set. This color map scheme is set by the matplotlib library. And let's see, that colors that. Let's close that out. Backspace. Let's close this out. Press enter. .legend. .remove. And basically, this removes the legend. And like in Excel, we had to delete the legend because by default, Excel puts one in there. So that takes care of that. Oh, backspace. Let's close this out. Press enter. Now let's put some the access labels in there. and then we'll show the plot itself, or basically the graph. So let's do plt.ylabel. Pass in, let's do this, ylabel, shift, sum of units sold. That's that. Press enter. plt.xlabel. Okay. And we're going to put in sales category. Press enter. And then let's show the plot itself. plt.show. And that should be it. Let's press Control Enter. Scroll down. Okay, let's see. Oh, here. That's what I did. I need to close this out. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, it looks like I'm missing an equal sign here. Let's Control Enter again. Okay, let's see what else I'm missing here. Sorry for all this here. Misspelled figure size. There we go. Now we got our plot. Sorry for some of the syntax errors, but sometimes I have typos and that's what happens. So basically now it displayed, so you could see the Y label, you have your sum of units sold. You have your X label, sales category over here. You could see that by this, it is a bar chart. And remember the fig size, you could change it to whatever you want. It just changes the size of your graph here. So let's go ahead and make this smaller so you could see the difference. So let's go by 7 and let's do this by 3 and let's see how it changes it here. Control Enter. See, it just decreases the size of your plot. So that's what that is for. You that is how that is used. So if you go back to Excel, you can see it created the same chart here. Okay. You have your units sold here, your category, high, medium, low, and it's in descending order. So this is how you could do some data analysis using Python lists if you're doing it within Python, and how you could utilize creating helper columns within your data set to do additional data analysis. I want to thank you for stopping by today. Hopefully you learned something new within your data analysis journey, and how to use Excel, and then also how to do the same thing within Python. Again, thanks for stopping by. You have a great day. Remember to subscribe to my channel and click on the bell notification so you always get notified whenever I have a new video uploaded. And also, please like and share this. I appreciate it very much, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.